Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. In this week's show, we're going to recap Submission Underground 13, Craig Jones versus Vinny Magalhães. We're going to talk a little bit about UFC 249 and UFC Fight Island, as well as a little bit of jiu-jitsu news. As always on the show, I'm your host, Mange, with my co-host,
Emil.
Hey, doing, Emil?
Oh, just majorly fucking grossed out, man.
Yeah,
how about you?
I'm doing pretty good. So we are still bringing you content here while we are quarantined in Maryland with coronavirus. So the audio for the show this week is going to take a little bit of a hit, but we're still going to, we're doing it remotely because Emil can't come over to the house and record. That was super gross. I watched that match about 20 times, and it was gross every time.
It's so goddamn gross.
So,
oh my god.
Before we get into the grossness that was the Craig Jones versus Vinny Magalhães match, let's talk about a little bit of BJJ news. Well, it's kind of, most of it's SUG-related news, but let's jump right into UFC 249.
Oh my god.
We don't usually cover MMA on this show, but it is one of the best cards that's been put together in since I can remember.
Yeah.
Maybe UFC 200 was close, but this is a barn burner.
And, I mean, from a grappling standpoint, it's pretty fucking compelling, all right? You have two different IBJJF world champs on that card.
Jacare and Verdum.
Right. You have Verdum versus Alexi Olynyk, which is just a fucking grappling freak show that I think we all want to fucking see. Like, I love Verdum. I want to see Alexi Olynyk pull off a fucking Nogi Ezekiel against a world champ. That would be fucking bananas.
I think this is Verdum's first fight since the USADA suspension.
Is it? Oh,
I think so. I think he's been off for 2 years, and he's coming back, and this one's like...
It's been that long?
I think so.
Damn,
I think
dude.
that it was not the Travis Brown fight. It was... He got knocked out by Stipe, and then I think he had another... We can just look this up, but let's...
Yeah, fuck it. No, I mean, it
baselessly speculate.
That's fucking wild. Verdum is great. Former UFC heavyweight champ. Former IBJJF world champ. Alexi Olynyk having fucking, like, Forrest Gumped his way into the UFC with a prodigious number of Nogi Ezekiel chokes, which...
I think it's 13. I think he's up to 13 now. I think 3 of which are in the UFC. He has like 40-something subs in MMA of 50-something fights or something. He's just like, he's got some absurd submission grappling record. Alexi Olynyk is amazing. I watched every single one of his fights in the UFC. I've watched his old fights like outside of the UFC.
Dude, he Nogi Ezekiel someone from Bottom Mount in a fucking professional MMA fight.
No, in a UFC fight.
Baller.
Not a professional,
That's so baller. That's so baller. Like,
that is one of those moves that you're like, hey, you see like a white belt, like a blue belt doing it, you're like, hey, don't do that. Why? It doesn't work. In the gi, you see guys do it. It's like, hey, it kind of works. He's doing it in MMA with the gloves in a professional fight in the world's most prestigious MMA organization against pretty good level talent.
Yep. I can't wait to see this fucking match.
Versus Verdum, who guillotined Cain Velasquez to take the title. Like, I cannot tell you how hype I am for this match for so many reasons. You know, the shitty thing is, we are all going to independently purchase this pay-per-view, whereas we normally just, like, get together and, like, split the pay-per-view. This is going to be, like, each one of us dropping $60 to watch these fights.
Yeah. Well, I mean, dude, I'm just happy to fucking see something, and especially a card of this magnitude. You also have, like, from a grappling standpoint, like little kind of low key, but like Anthony Pettis and Cowboy Cerrone both have an incredible number of really flashy submissions in the UFC.
And it's a rematch.
So, yeah.
Both these guys fought. I think Pettis finished Cowboy to the body. I recently just rewatched the finish because somebody posted on Reddit. Shout out to you guys. And it was back when... I know I watched the fight live. It was back when you could still wear non-Reebok shorts. So, like, that tells you how long ago that fight was. It was a while ago.
Yeah. So,
did they fight in the WEC too, or no?
That's a good question.
I know that Cowboy and Benson fought a bunch of times. I think once in the WEC and twice in the UFC. Because I was at one of the Cowboy and Benson fights. I was at the Boston one with McGregor on it.
I wasn't watching UFC or MMA back then, so I don't know WC shit, but I do know those guys have some really impressive submission victories.
I think Cowboy or Pettis I forget which one of them has the most submissions off their back. I think Pettis has the most submissions off his back in the UFC.
I know the stat that you're talking about, and yeah, I can't remember which one of them that is. But yeah, regardless, that's gonna be fucking dope. And yeah, the rest of the card from an MMA standpoint looks fucking amazing.
Yeah,
but
we have Tony Ferguson fighting for another interim title, even though he has not lost in that division. Tony Ferguson, the type of guy to fight to defend his interim title.
Yeah.
Or to win it back if he beats Gaethje here. He did just finish cutting weight a couple weeks ago for some reason.
Twice. He did it twice.
I don't know, man.
He's so fucking crazy, man.
Yeah. So you were talking about a crazy stat before we started the show that you got from Jack Slack that Ferguson has, would you say like 20 or 25% of all the Darces in the UFC?
Jack Slack had a tweet back in 2016 in the summer that was like, Tony Ferguson is responsible for 25% of Darce submissions in the UFC. And I was like, that's fucking crazy. You look it up, and it's true. He has like 3 or 4, and there's not that many Darces in the UFC.
No, which is
crazy to me.
I looked up the stat. There's been a lot more Darces since that tweet, 4 years ago or so when that tweet was made. There's been 25 Darces in the UFC. Ferguson has 3 of them, or 3 or 4 of them. But and that tweet was after he had Darced Lando Venata back in like July of 2016.
So I think there's going to be a lot of unusual like grappling submission styles on this fucking card. So it's going to be fucking dope.
Yeah, like, not to mention you got like Ngannou on the card. You have Cejudo versus Cruz on this card as well.
Yep, that's going to be an outstanding like fight. Like, yeah, there's a ton of really compelling
May 9th. So we're technically going to have one show. Next week's show will happen before this card happens, but it got like officially announced finally this week, and so I think one of the guys in the team put it into the chat. And I was like, "Is that real? Was it you or Simon?"
I think I put it in, yeah.
Okay, I was like, that can't be real. It's got Waterson versus Esparza, Jacare versus Uriah Hall, which we didn't talk about. Like, Jacare's, I mean, he's been doing a lot more stand-up towards, post-Strike Force in his career, but he still is a really, really good top-level grappler. Dude, this is a dope fight. This is a dope card.
Yeah. And what's even more amazing is, like, Dana White announced basically cards every week.
He announced Fight Island is actually gonna be a thing.
In June, Fight Island is going down.
So
we have Fight Island with fucking Octagon on the beach, fucking Enter the Dragon style. Like, Dana was coked out watching fucking Enter the Dragon, and he was like, this is a business model. We're gonna fucking do this.
So the funny thing about this is, there have been fights on the beach before. There's been a bunch of like fights. King of the Cage 6 Wet and Wild is on UFC Fight Pass. It's where it started raining during the event, and they didn't cancel the fights. And so you can see guys like fucking slipping and like falling like during their fights because there's no traction. And actually some big guys fought on that card. It's way back in the day. Bodog fights. I think Masvidal and Pele and somebody else big fought on the Bodog Fights card when they had it on the beach as well. Like open air, bugs everywhere on the beach. Like guys have run cards on the beach before like this. I am super amped. It's going to look like the old Hard Rock thing where it's just like a really small arena on the beach. It's going to be crazy. So UFC Fight Island is a thing. They're probably going to retire it after the coronavirus ends. But
fuck that. I hope they keep it going.
Dude, I would love to see a Survivor version of Tough on an island.
100%. Everyone wants to see that.
So let's see. I got no other news. It's mostly like UFC news. We have a couple other matchups that are probably going to be announced. We'll talk about them. Well, we'll talk about them now because.
Yeah,
it's coronavirus and everything's messed up. So Chael is trying to now get Lovato to face Craig Jones after Craig Jones' performance this yesterday.
Which is actually, now that I think about it, a pretty big size difference, right? Like Craig is what, like 185 or something like that?
No, I think Craig's 200.
Yeah?
I think Chael earlier in the broadcast I think Craig was like, I thought he was like 205. I know Craig
He just
varies
cuts
his
down
weight a little
for
bit.
ADCC.
Yeah, he cuts a lot of weight for ADCC, and he goes to 88 for ADCC, and he talks about how much weight he has to cut, and he looked pretty sucked out when we saw him at ADCC. So I think I know he's above 200. Lovato is I think 210 around there. He used to fight at 85 before he had to relinquish his Bellator title.
Yeah, okay.
So it's honestly, that's a super compelling matchup too. I want to see the winner of that fight Yuri Samos though. Because I know Yuri has a win at Fight to Win recently over Lovato. We just saw the weird match with Cyborg and Lovato. It went to like 9 overtimes in Substars. I think that's the only time Cyborg's beaten him. So it's like Cyborg's on that short list as well for someone I want to see. Maybe fight Lovato again because I like watching those two guys fight. But I think Yuri is the winner of Lovato versus Craig. I feel like Yuri should get that matchup.
And then the other match that Chael was talking about was Ben Askren and Dylan Dennis. So that'll be interesting. We'll see if we can get all those shit talkers under the same roof.
I just feel like that Dennis probably takes that pretty handily, like pretty easily.
Yep.
I mean, Dennis is like everyone shits on him because he does ridiculous stuff online, but like,
I mean, his jiu-jitsu is excellent.
He's an outstanding grappler. Like he is really, really good. And Askren they've both been to ADCC. Like they're both outstanding grapplers, but Askren's definitely a little older, definitely a little slowing down. He's getting his hips replaced.
The like wrestling grind is less effective. Like it's in a jiu-jitsu format and in general too. Like, you know, it's hard to keep up that wrestling pace that far in, it's so but who knows? I mean, that would be certainly entertaining.
I would love to see it.
Would be great.
I just really think that it's Dennis's to lose in a pretty significant way. I don't really see a pathway for Askren in victory here. Like even if it goes to overtime and you put Askren on Dennis's back, like it just like Dennis is going to be stronger every other place there except for the stand up. And it's jiu-jitsu, so no one really cares about the stand-up. But there's no points in SUG, so. But again, I'd love to see it. It'd be interesting. Again, I honestly would like to see more of Dylan back in grappling because the dude is super legit at grappling. As much as everyone like cares for him or doesn't care for him, like I like watching him do what he's really good at, which is grappling. Yep. So I want to see more of it. Let's see. We're possibly going to see Joe Bays versus Austin Vandervoort now. Chael was trying to set up Joe Bays versus Richie Martinez before the Martinez match happened in the card, and potentially now we're going to see Joe Bays, who also won his match on SUG, versus Austin Vandervoort now, which is interesting. So that's all I got for news. That was kind of a super weird news segment, but it's quarantine time, so this is what's happening. Let's move to the card, Emil. Let's talk about the grossest shit I've seen in the past month.
Oh my god! I mean, like at this point, I'm assuming everyone's seen this shit.
If you haven't seen it, Craig Jones broke Vinny Magalhães' leg. Actually, literally, I think probably actually broke his leg twice in the match.
Possibly.
No, I literally I think there's big talk that it is probably broken or at least internally dislocated. Like there is a big injury in Magalhães' leg. Thank you, Craig Jones.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Craig Jones wins by submission, even though Vinny didn't tap until like way after this shit. Like it basically Craig Jones started entering kind of classic Craig Jones style, inverting on the far leg, and like he gets a full outside Sankaku with an inside heel hook, and Vinny is doing the typical like no sell, like totally cool. He's gonna try to like running man, and Craig Jones gets belly down and fucking twists this leg like at this point what like 270 degrees.
I'm guessing it was probably closer to like 210, 220.
It was like freak. It was like the kind of thing where if you see it immediately, you want to scream. And
on the broadcast, you hear like a crunch. You are like at 43 seconds into the match. This first sequence happens for Craig Jones, and you hear an audible like crunch. of something in Vinny's leg.
And like they keep going, but like maybe like 20 or 30 seconds later, they kind of pause in the middle of the match, and you can see Craig talking to Vinny and Vinny responding. And even Chael is like, what the hell are they talking about?
Yeah, because Chael's in a separate booth that he's commentating. Dude, props to Chael. That is difficult as shit to do, and he's now done it twice. Remote commentary alone for an hour and a half talking about matches.
Yeah. And then, like, Vinny and Craig keep going at it, and Craig does another inversion, gets to saddle, and just starts, again, like, this time belly up, ripping a heel hook across his chest, and also doing what I think you were talking about this stomping kind of mechanic. And I think a Redditor posted calling it the like Ryan Hall stomp mechanic.
Yeah, that's where I find it.
It's a very like very quick, very violent twisting mechanic.
It's like you're basically like jerking the leg.
Jerk.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like again, this leg twists even more, and like,
well, there's a better camera angle of this one. Like the first camera angle we see for the one at 43 seconds in is top down, and you can hear the crunch audibly there. But like it's like it looks bad, but Vinny kind of like no sells it and gets out. This one, the camera angle is you can like see that the knee is facing. Vinny is facing one way. His knee and foot are facing the exact opposite direction, and you can see like, oh, his foot is facing down, and like the leg is facing up, and he has spats on, so you can't see the twisting of the skin, which usually honestly makes it way grosser. So his leg got broken more here, or like at least the ligament snapped more. And after this, the guys they're Vinny doesn't tap, and they keep going.
Craig
and then
looks like genuinely disgusted right now.
And like talks to him, like, and he's at the bottom, and Craig has both hands up, and he's like, what is it? What he said something, and I caught it on the broadcast. It was like, it's fucking terrible, man. And Vinny goes, it's already fucked.
Yeah. And
they keep going.
They keep going, but then like, so Vinny is kneeling, passing, and at one point he just like nothing is happening, and he just like turns to the ref, and the ref calls submission. So clearly it was so fucked up. It wasn't even like a oh, there was like, you know, a moment of, you know, this might be like damage or whatever. It was like he's already kneeling, and he's thinking about it, and he has had time to think about it, and he's like, I cannot physically continue.
Because it's a minute after like it gets broken again. And then Vinny, like you see, and then there's a screenshot I took and I showed the guys in the chat. At like 48 seconds left in the match, you can see the camera turn sideways. So you can see Vinny like scoot towards Craig, and you can see the leg that's damaged, and the foot is like not attached to the ankle correctly.
It's like flopping in a weird angle.
Yeah.
And
that's also, it's super swollen. So it's like, okay, in 3 minutes, his leg has swollen up that much. And then, Vinny talked about, and there's a big interview after between Craig, Vinny, and it sounds like Chael actually running the camera work here. And they're talking about, like, what happened in the match, like, directly after, like, cage side. And he goes, yeah, like, the leg popped a bunch. And he goes, it's fucked. Like my legs are really flexible. And Vinny's standing up, like talking, and he sits down and he kind of shows how flexible his good foot is. And then he goes, once it had popped, I knew that it couldn't like. He goes, it wasn't. He used some terminology. Basically, like it felt like it was swelling up. So if he did it again, it was gonna break the skin, and that was gonna be really gross. And I went, that is disgusting. And you are super gangster. Very few people can. He's like casually talking. He's just like there. His leg's broken.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it in Craig's face. Like Craig was disgusted with the whole fucking thing, and I completely agree. Like there was no reason for that. It was not like the match continued, and Vinny was able to do anything with it.
Vinny does address this in the post-fight interview. He does address. He talked about he was looking. So we've seen Vinny go against Gordon Ryan before at ACBJJ. We talked about that a couple years ago on the show, and what Vinny was doing. There's an outstanding BJJ Scout video that breaks down exactly what Vinny Magalhães did in that match and why he was able to escape and how he was able to do it. It's honestly great. You should definitely go watch that BJJ Scout video because it explains a lot of what Vinny was trying to do here, but Craig Jones was able to get enough purchase on the leg to just break his leg.
Which is fine. But like then continue, like you can see the obstinance in it because it wasn't like there was a break and it was like, fuck, I got. It was just like, I'm just gonna like tough this through. And like I've heard other jiu-jitsu guys talk about this where it's like they'll say this more about straight ankle locks where it's like, it's not a real submission. And like Gary Tonin has even talked about this and talked about like seeing someone's foot fucking snap.
Yeah.
Because someone was being arrogant, being like, this isn't really a thing.
There's a really famous video that I show to all of my students at Hopkins. Every semester I show it and I bring it up like, hey, if you want to see it, it's Hector Lombard in some local jiu-jitsu tournament, and he's in a purple belt match, something like that. And he grabs a straight ankle lock, and he breaks the guy's shin bone in the straight ankle lock. And it's a really famous video. It's grainy, it's terrible quality, but I basically go, hey, like, yes, the straight ankle lock hurts a lot, and you can tough it out for a very long time before you have to tap. But if you don't tap and you reach that point, it will break. Yeah. Like your foot will break, or the ankle will break, or the shin will break.
Like doing that shit, and I get it. Like Vinny was able to survive with Gordon Ryan, which is like, like one of the probably the best leg locker out there right now. Like although Craig Jones just kind of made a good case for why he's the best. But like I get, okay, you feel comfortable in these situations, but it's like relying on your body to resist a submission is foolish because at some point you reach someone who has the combination of technique and athleticism,
to Craig Jones.
And, and now it's like, I wish Vinny a speedy recovery. I think the jiu-jitsu world is better with him competing in it, but like it didn't have to get to this point,
So yeah, it kind of sucks to see Vinny out again. If we're serious, if you're gonna get your leg broken, now is the best time as any to get your leg broken because like you can't train anyway and nothing's open, and so you got a time to recover. So it sucks. I like watching Vinny. I've interviewed Vinny. I think we didn't get a chance to interview him at ADCC, but I spoke with him at ADCC, and we interviewed him at Kasai after the Nick Rodriguez match.
He was the first person that we talked to at ADCC.
Yeah, I think he asked us like where something was.
Yeah, we're just like walking around.
He's like, "Hey, know what this thing is?" I'm like, "That's Vinny Magalhães." Holy shit! And then I realized like we're at ADCC. This is gonna happen all weekend. He was super great. There's an interview with us on the Grappling Rewind YouTube page after Kasai talking about actually he got injured at Kasai too. With Vinny talking about it. It's a good interview. Again, I'm a huge fan of Vinny. I like watching Vinny. He's typically had some slower matches in the recent kind of past, but he's super stupid hard to beat. And he's a top level, whether you like his style or not. He's fighting MMA. He made it to the finals of the PFL last season. Like super good. 35. Like we're gonna be seeing more of Vinny Magalhães. He's been a black belt for 14 years. Wish him the speediest of recovery. I like watching the dude fight. I'm honestly curious to see who he'll face after this. I don't really want to see the Craig Jones rematch immediately after this one. But there are still. I mean, he has a win over Gordon Ryan, and a pretty handy points win over him. Go back and watch that BJJ Scout kind of break down about how he did that because it's super impressive. And then go watch the Craig Jones video. This match here to see what Craig Jones does differently about that. I'm actually gonna do some tape study later tonight, probably as I'm editing between both those, because I'm super curious and I haven't got a chance to go back and review them. Also, watch the post-fight interview between Craig Jones and Gordon and Vinny Magalhães that's going around because it explains a lot of what we're seeing. You get to see Vinny's foot after the fact, and it's just honestly, it teaches you a lot about jiu-jitsu. Like, hey, you gotta leg locks actually do work sometimes. And occasionally you get your leg broken in half. So it was gross. I then went down a rabbit hole after this match and watched a bunch of other really famous leg breaks. I don't know why I did that, Emil.
That is so profoundly gross.
There's a really famous video of Josh LeDuc, Star-Lord. He's the guy that runs Zapatero. He's the guy that he runs a bunch of stuff. You know who he is. He's the guy that offered to put up $300,000 for the Gordon versus Galvao match when that was getting kicked around. He has a match back in like 2018 where he broke a guy's leg in half, very similar way during the match, and the guy wanted to keep going, and he's like, "No, man, I'm done. Like, I'm not like I'm done. I'm done competing. Like, I just broke your leg in half. I'm done." It's a really short video, but again, there's a bunch of videos. There's a highlight videos of dudes getting their legs broken in half. You gotta tap.
There's so much gross shit like that. Oh my god.
Have you ever had your leg popped?
I've had my ankles break, or not break, but pop, and it wasn't. So I understand why some of the guys don't tap to things like toe holds and stuff, like, because my ankles will pop around and like they might even swell, but then like within a day or two they're fine. I've definitely popped my knees before, but never in a submission. They were always like stand up or some weird shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tough, but like, oh dude, we saw Peon Davies' ankle get fucking broke.
I've seen, again, at almost every professional event that we have covered as the Grappling Rewind, I have seen someone break something, dislocate something, or get like, or get put to sleep. Pretty much universally at every pro card I've went to.
Getting put to sleep is just hilarious.
It is really funny.
It's really funny. I don't like seeing injuries, though.
I don't either. Like, I think this is one of the worst injuries I've seen live. I've seen a guy get his arm broken in half live. I've seen knees go. I've seen non-compound dislocation. I've seen a dislocated foot.
I've seen a lot of dislocated elbows. I feel like
I have seen a lot of that.
People hang through the arm bars.
I've seen a couple of spiral fractures on Kimuras. Maybe only 2 of those live. A spiral fracture on the Kimura where the whole arm just goes and like breaks the entire long bone. That was great. And then Rachel had to compete like the next match, and she was like, "Oh shit, I got to get it together." So that was a fun coaching day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take care of yourselves.
Dude, I popped both my knees out. Rachel was on the podcast talking about one of those years ago when I blew my knee in 2018, I think. Like 2 weeks after moving into this house or something, like 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, good times. I've popped both my LCLs, and I got my foot crushed in a toe hold at like white belt.
Yeah.
Once, where like I had to wrap it for like 4 months because it was jacked.
I have my feet are just super fucking sensitive to toe holds. Like if someone gets a toe hold grip on me, I tap. I don't try to like fight through it. I think
you got things to do, Emil.
You gotta know your body, but
you gotta know when to hold them. You know when to fold them. Touch Emil's feet, and he's like, "No, I'm good. You got it.
Yeah,
you won.
No, I'm good."
It's almost like annoying to grapple with you sometimes because I would grab your foot like, "Yeah, I'm about to murder his foot." And you're like, tap. I'm like, "But Emil, I didn't get to do the murder part." And you're like, "Yeah, you got it." I'm like,
"Yeah,
I know I got it,
but
but
to get to that point,
I know, Emil."
Popping, no.
I popped my elbows a bunch before.
I would rather be in a heel hook than be in a toe hold. So that's me.
I don't know after this match. So what's the next match you want to talk about?
Austin Vanderford versus defeats Richie Martinez by submission.
So Chael talked about this match being Vanderford was a 3-1 underdog. If you don't know, Austin Vanderford is Paige Van Zant's husband, Mr. Van Zant, I think is what he goes by, as well as Bellator fighter. This was a hell of an upset.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, like the actual match, was just Richie and seated guard and kind of non-committal passing from Austin. There was a few times where he did like explosive Toriando passes, but never really established anything. And then in overtime, there's kind of like they go back and forth with escapes. And in overtime 2, I think is what it's listed as. Austin's on the back and Richie turns into him but leaves his arm up and isolated, and Austin just like gets the arm triangle position from top half and just fucking squeezes the shit out of it, and you get a tap.
Which is funny because we've seen Richie escape like this frequently. Like, this is a frequent escape that Martinez goes to, where he kind of will leave his arms out, and he can sort of usually tough it out and then roll. But I was super curious because Richie Martinez has a tendency to get into this and kind of just hold and wait, and then very slowly like worm back into position and regain guard. But here he laid flat for a really long period of time and was never able to get the underside of his arm past Austin's head, and he got sort of stuck in the position. It was really interesting because typically we don't see Richie get just stuck somewhere like that.
I mean, there are certain submissions, like, I think MMA fighters probably train the shit out of, right? Like, and for sure, arm triangle is up there.
Because you don't have to get a position. You can do it from half guard, and you can. It's a super easy pass with the knee cut out, and you don't have to give up the control, and you can't get punched.
It's such an easy way to tire someone out too. Like you can an arm triangle. You can expend very little of your energy while they are just fucking getting one arm just fucking exhausted.
Well, and the best part about the arm triangle for MMA is that once they get out of it, you're still in top position. Like, it's not like an arm bar that you fall off for and it's like, okay, I lose. Maybe I'm on the bottom. Maybe I'm in guard. Maybe they're doing ground and pound. It's, okay, cool, the arm triangle didn't work. I move position and I'm still on top of the guy, and now I can keep hitting him with elbows or punches, and he's still got to escape the bottom position.
Right. So yeah, I definitely think that is a submission that MMA fighters are very proficient in it. So yeah, Austin's able to take the win here.
I thought it was really interesting the way that Austin he got a little flack online. He kind of really was not super committal during the regulation. Like, you're fighting a guy like Richie Martinez, who is known for. I think Richie Martinez is probably the highest level rubber guard player currently competing. I mean, he plays rubber guard more than anyone that we've seen, and I think he has the best subs over anyone in the modern era using the rubber guard.
And I would say that.
I mean, that's the guard that he plays. He's the biggest, only guy that we see played effectively. And I think Austin looked at him and went, you know what? I don't want to be inside this dude's closed guard. He's going to posture me down. He's really, really, Richard Martinez is a very good black belt. Mm-hmm. And Austin probably didn't want to deal with that. He stays on the outside, goes to regulation, where then he can control the position a lot more effectively, and then, gets the win. I think it's really good gamesmanship. I'm not as much of a fan of the overtime, and Mio and I, we've talked about the overtime ad nauseum before, but, that is understanding. That's why I like guys that are MMA fighters, because they're gamers, and that is using the rules to, win over, when you're a 3-1 underdog. Yep. So, good on him. I'm curious to see if Chael's going to match him up with Joe Baez, because Chael was going to try to make the Baez versus Martinez match if both those guys won. But now that Martinez wasn't able to win and Vanderfort won and Baez won his match, I'm curious to see if we're going to see that matchup, because that's honestly super interesting. I think Baez has a style that's going to be much more difficult to deal with for Vanderfort than Martinez. Martinez is, typically a rubber guard guy. He'll go to the legs as well. But Baez is a rip your leg off kind of dude.
Yep. So next match, we got Gabriel Checo defeating Jake Ellenberger by reverse triangle choke. So speaking of rubber guard, Gabriel Checo was doing an amazing job, using rubber guard to break Jake Ellenberger's posture down. And really good job Gabriel did of alternating sides for using kind of his rubber guard. And what I really liked was so rubber guard has that almost part omoplata position where you're using your leg behind the person's armpit to break them down. And you could see him just really breaking Jake's posture down. And Jake takes one arm and puts it on Gabriel's chest to try to regain some posture. And Gabriel just takes it and stuffs it and gets into a trap triangle position, and then puts on the reverse triangle, which is super interesting to me because I don't see that submission as much. I see it as a control position, but the choke you see less frequently.
Because generally it's terrible.
Yeah.
Like, generally, I mean, we saw speaking of guys we're going to see, Tony Ferguson hit a reverse triangle on Kevin Lee. Like, generally, unless your positioning is super tight in a very specific way, it's a pretty garbage choke. I mean, it's very, very hard to get the right angle to do it. But if you get there, it's very hittable. So if you notice, he's so postured down. When he makes the angle, he actually has the correct positioning for the reverse triangle in order to put the pressure into it and hold Ellenberger down to get the tap.
Yep. Yeah, so he doesn't even need to like try to armbar or anything. He just fucking gets the choke. It was very impressive. Just a nice showing of rubber guard and you know what you can do with it. So, and then on the prelim card, we have Ethan Cranston defeating Andrew Alexander by rear naked choke in overtime. This was hilarious. This entire match, Chael fucked up Ethan's name in so many different ways.
Chael was telling a story. Like, so, okay, I love Chael. I love Chael Sonnen for a couple reasons. The commentary was
super entertaining.
Was hilarious here because you could tell that it didn't seem like Chael knew who Ethan Cranston was. And, like, you see Chael do this because Chael...
called him Krylstein.
He called him Ian.
Yeah.
So,
and it's just like...
It is funny because it reminded me of the Misha Tate, Jordan Ryan thing at Quintet.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God.
Where it was like, oh, you don't really know who this dude is. Like, Ethan Cranston, trials winner at ADCC, got, like, really, really high-level grappler that's on your card, that's main eventing your prelims. And Chael was kind of like... When Chael knows a grappler, he will talk about the match and talk about the match in depth, talk about the guys. When he doesn't know the grapplers, he will call the match a little bit and he will like tell a story. And he was in the middle of telling a story this entire match. And it's one of Chael's tells that he's not super familiar with the athlete. And it was just made me laugh that I was like, wait, Ethan Cranston's a guy you're not super familiar with?
Yeah. Because, like, I actually would have had Ethan on the main card, for example.
That was the most surprising to me, was that he was on the undercard. I was like, wait, Cranston on the undercard here? All right, I guess that's where you're going to put him.
So this match, actually, this was a great match. Like, good 50-50 leg entanglements from both sides. Andrew Alexander, like, doing an amazing job at countering and then attacking his own leg, like, locks against Ethan, who is, like, obviously extremely proficient.
That surprised me.
You know, a tri-star guy, trains with the Danaher Death Squad, like, you know, is in Ethan is a very complete grappler.
Won the trials over Krikorian, defended that.
The trials, submitted everybody.
Yeah.
He submitted everybody in the trials. And then the only reason why we didn't see him at ADCC was because he was ill.
He got something. I forget what he got. He got like...
He might have, honestly, gotten conjunctivitis and just not, like, talked about it.
I forget exactly what he had. He had something, because we talked to him.
It was something like the flu, but, like...
I think he had the flu, because he was at ADCC.
At a bunch of those guys, a bunch of the Henzo guys had conjunctivitis, as you recall.
I do recall, yes.
So, yeah, anyway... So good 50-50 back and forth, goes to overtime. Ethan goes to the back and just works insane body locks, like switching back and forth. Like, he just made it look so smooth. And not only was he switching his legs depending on the position, he kept switching his arms for attacking the rear naked choke and eventually sunk it in and got the choke. And, you know, Andrew was able to have a rebuttal overtime, but Ethan, you know, escaped the back and won.
I'm gonna watch more of Ethan's passing because I'm a really big fan of the off timing he uses for passing here.
Yeah,
and it's nice to see. And I'm gonna this match kind of keyed me. Oh yeah, I want to watch more Cranston's passing because there was a highlight that came up, I think, on Instagram of like him at one of the finishers, and it was like a passing sequence he did at one of the finishers, I think, and it was like, man, he's got really slick like back and forth passing that I want to watch. And so it kind of keyed me off. Again, while we're here in coronavirus quarantine, like, it's time to watch tape study, so I'm making a list this week because I'm getting back into it of like, okay, I'm gonna start studying some stuff that I want to look at, and Cranston's passing is one of the things I want to look at. Also his like leg pummeling on the back, because he's a very similar size to me, so there's a lot of stuff that I think I can take away from like a body size thing. And I'm going to get more to like looking at grapplers that I think have a body style and like a grappling style that I can emulate. And so I have some tape study homework. Anything else on that one?
That's it, man.
All right. Let's go through. Want to go through the rest of the card?
Yeah, just for results, we have Don Stoner defeating Alex Larmy by escape time. Joe Bays defeats Nicholas Maximov by heel hook. Chris
In regulation, that was, by the way, this is super quick. Like, Bays, we're going to see more. Like, Bays has been on SUG a bunch of times. He fought Gordon Ryan on, like, the first SUG. Like, you're seeing more Bays. We saw Bays in PGA Fanatics. We've seen him a bunch of places. Look out for him. He's going to continue to be on a lot of stuff. And like Chael said, watch this match. This is exactly what he does. This is exactly how he enters the heel hook. And this is, gets it done.
Chris Lencioni defeats Gabriel Austin Daffron by escape time. Charlie Gilpin defeats Jake Smith by Kimura.
This was a nifty Kimura, too. He does it off of, like, that arm drag Kimura, that, like, falling, like, the windmill Kimura over, and lands in mount, like, pulls himself into mount on the Kimura and finishes it. It's a really, really quick, like, nifty tap. Go back and watch it. It's a really nice highlight.
Aaron McConico defeats Jorge Martinez by armbar, and it might be George Martinez. Cody Kanaga defeats Jake Hargis by toe hold.
So that was Submission Underground 13. Some of the grossest leg locks I have ever seen. I enjoyed the shit out of it. It was great to watch this. Dude, an hour and a half. The whole card, I think, is an hour and a half, end to end. This was awesome. Like, I enjoyed this shit. Like, this is two hour cards, dude, are right where it's
surprising
at.
Coming from you, man.
Dude, 2 hour cards, right where it's at. Like, I sat down, I watched the whole card, like, live when it was happening. I was like, oh shit, and then it was done. It was perfect. It was exactly what I was looking for on a Sunday evening.
Hour and a half to 2 hours. That's
6 p.m. start time.
Yeah, but this goes back to the whole. I've brought this up kind of offline with you before, but when you're a promotion, like, you really have to think about what your business model is. Like, you cannot just think like more jiu-jitsu equals better. Like, longer matches, more matches do not necessarily
if you're streaming.
Product. If you're streaming,
yeah.
That's your business model, right? I mean, if you are doing a tournament, then obviously you have to have, as many matches as you need to complete your tournament. There's just a million different ways to do it. And even the tournaments can differ, because you can have ticket sale tournaments, you can have fighter fee tournaments, or you can have streaming tournaments. It all depends, and I hope that more people think about what their end product looks like, because, yeah, it makes it a lot easier and fun to watch.
Oh, so I want to ask you, I don't know if you remember, matches in SUG are typically 10 minutes. They're not typically 5 minutes. Is that correct?
I can't remember.
These were all 5 minutes. I remember that most SUG main events are like 15 minutes. Like, I remember that I think Scherner versus Sylvia was 15 minutes. It was scheduled 15 minutes. I think that like Gonzaga versus whoever Gonzaga fought. Like, I think a lot of these matches are scheduled 15 minutes. It was really interesting that all of these were 5-minute matches. I am a fan. I loved that change because the pacing of the matches was much better. Because guys knew they didn't have to go 10, 15 minutes. Actually, in the contrast to that, I literally just watched the Ninja fight. What's Shogun? What's Ninja Hua versus Ricardo Arona today. It's a pride fight where the first round's 10 minutes. And I was like, oh, this is way better. I love this. And then the second 2 rounds are 5-minute rounds. But in grappling, I like 5 to 6 minutes. Like, that match length is, like, perfect. In MMA, I like 10-minute first round, but in grappling, I like that 5 to 6 minute window. There's something about the pacing of it with athletes that just, like, works for me as a viewer.
Yep. Yeah.
Are you wearing a PAX shirt?
Yeah. PAX Unplugged.
What year?
This is, I don't think this 2 years ago
PAX
or a year and a
now?
half ago.
Oh, okay.
No, Unplugged. It's like the board game, like, PAX. So.
Oh. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was a PAX East shirt, because that's one of the PAXs I went to years ago, and so I always get reminiscent about it. So yeah, great. Go back and watch it. It's on Fight Pass. It's the only event that's happening. I'm not sure. Honestly, I think we've covered SUG back to back now. I don't think we've covered another event in the meantime since the last SUG.
Yeah, no.
Crazy times, Emil.
Yeah.
So
wild.
I got nothing else. Next week will probably be a Marcelo episode. I think we were going to do that this week because we forgot that SUG was happening. Because I'm not keeping the calendar right now.
Another option is, we could go into Craig Jones since, he's fresh off of this nasty one. So
I'm honestly going to look at a bunch of tape study for him this week. So I might be down for that. I'd love to pull like 6 matches from Jones.
As to what is so different about his leg lock attacks that like he was able to like repeatedly break Vinny's leg?
I mean, Vinny talked about wanting to counter it. I think it's interesting. I'm curious. I think it's either that or Marcelo next week. I think I want to go back and watch the tape study.
Play it by ear. We can get feedback from people. Whatever you want to look at. I think I would be excited to talk about either of those. So
I'll talk about. I'll put a poll up on Instagram tonight. I'll actually do it this time. And you can vote on basically, hey, I'll put like Marcelo up, and then I'll put like the Craig Jones up, and you can basically take a vote of which one you would like to see or hear about us talk about next week. I'll get a collection of matches together for like what we're gonna look at, and then we'll figure it out. So, anything else you got going on this week, Emil?
Nah, man.
Just chilling in quarantine still?
Chilling, dude. Watching The Last Dance, the Bulls documentary on ESPN.
Everyone loves that.
It's fucking great, dude.
And then there's all these like infographics coming out of like, Jones versus Michael Jordan versus LeBron. I'm like, yeah, they're 20 years apart. The league changes a lot in that time.
Yeah, it's true. But man, and obviously a lot of it is nostalgia too, because like it's growing up when he was like big. I was messaging with George Charlambopoulos about it, like because he made a post about it, and I was reminiscing like when I was a kid. I was like, I never like seriously watched NBA games, but like Michael Jordan was so big that I remember like fighting kids over who got to wear the number 23 like on a soccer team. Like that's how big he was. And like
that's crazy.
There was a lot of people that wanted to wear the number 23, like so
there's a post that goes around every year or so, and it basically has Michael Jordan, LeBron, had Kobe on it. It has a bunch of like famous like players from different sports, and it says you'll probably never train with these guys. And then it has like a bunch of really famous jiu-jitsu guys on it, and it goes, but you can probably train with these guys.
Yeah.
And it's just really that for some reason whenever I think of Jordan and Kobe and like that info, that like little meme pops up because it's so cool to like I've trained with Jamil. Like I've trained with like a bunch of like I've interviewed like some of the top dudes in professional grappling, and we've only been doing the show for a couple of years. And we put the legwork in. We do a lot on the back end to make sure we can do that. But it's just crazy the amount of access to the talent that our sport has. And like they do seminars, and you can go pay and go do a seminar with the top guys in the world, and they'll train with you and they'll show you what they do. Like that is unprecedented in any other sport, and it's super cool that jiu-jitsu does that.
It's the silver lining of being a niche sport, so
yeah, it's like our superstars are like accessible. Like we're talking about Vinny and Craig, like we've interviewed both those guys, after the biggest tournament ever, ADCC, and after Kasai, like we've talked to these guys. It's super cool. I'm a fan of what we do. I love doing this show. I love watching the sport. I am hesitant that everything's opening back up right now. Kind of makes me nervous a little bit, but I don't really want to talk about that too much.
Yeah.
I think Maryland, we're technically... Do you know when the quarantine breaks for Maryland?
There's no date. Governor Hogan has basically listed a 3-step, like basically tiers of reopening.
Okay.
And I know from what I heard, he will begin that tiered process when the number of like ICU entries for COVID goes down.
Okay.
So it's not like an arbitrary date. It's like, okay, when we get to when the number of cases going into the ICU drops, then we will do reopening parks with like distancing and like
that's actually sounds like a super like good way to do that.
Yeah, that's a empirically based thing. It's like it's going to be monitoring doing like a full stop arbitrary open everything up again is like I hope I'm wrong, but like, and I hope the experts are wrong, but like everything's pointing to like it being way worse. But anyway, we don't have to talk about it.
That's
This
awesome.
ain't a
I'm super
COVID
happy that,
podcast.
at least there's an empirical like method for the state that I live in. I am still teleworking indefinitely for the foreseeable future. My work computer is like right there with the monitors and everything set up next to my fun computer where we do the podcast on it. So, it's been good. I'm going to get back into shape again. I cannot wait to see everyone and choke all of my friends.
That's right.
Everyone's getting like nostalgic, like, hey, I miss you, buddy. It's like, they're not dead.
Yeah.
It's like, yo, we're not on the mats, you're dead to me. You go out and live your life, do whatever. I will see you on the mats.
We will, we'll be back eventually.
Yeah. So, all right. I got nothing else, Emil. You got anything else?
That's it, man.
All right. As always on the show, I'm your host, Maine, joined by co-host,
Emil.
and we are the Grappling Rewind. We'll see you on the mats. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
Let us know.
reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.